This is Richard Wolff responding to another Ask Prof Wolff question from our Patreon community. And this one comes from Diego Acevedo. He asks about the Marcora Law. It's an Italian legislation that he tried recently to get introduced into the U.S. Congress so it might be passed here in the United States. I thank Diego Acevedo for bringing this up because it allows me to explain to everyone what the Marcora Law is and then to comment on his effort to get it into the United States. The Marcora Law, named after an Italian legislator in Italy, was passed in 1985, and it is still on the books in Italy, despite the efforts of big business and conservatives to get rid of it. Here's what the law specifies. If you become unemployed through no fault of your own, for example, during a pandemic, for example, when employers make the wrong product and can't sell it and so have to lay workers off, etc., if you lose your job, you can have one of two choices. Your first choice is to go on unemployment, kind of like we do in the United States. You get a check every week for somewhere between half a year and a couple of years, depending on the situation, money to help you through a hard time. You sit at home, maybe you look for a job, and the government helps you with an unemployment check every week. In Europe, it's mostly called the dole. But the Marcora Law gives Italian unemployed workers a second alternative. If you can get at least 9 other unemployed Italian workers like yourself to agree, you can get the government to give you as a lump sum right now the full amount of money they would otherwise have given you in weekly unemployment checks. There's a condition. You have to use the lump sum, together with at least the other 9 unemployed workers, as the startup capital to start a worker co-op business. And of course, if you fail, you can't go back on unemployment because in a sense, you've gotten the full unemployment benefit in that lump sum. Interesting option. American workers have no such option. Italians have the freedom to choose between going on the dole and getting a regular check, or together with unemployed, going into business with a group of people together in a worker co-op. Wow. Of course, Americans in general don't know anything about this. They don't understand that they are denied the freedom of choice that the Marcora Law gives to the Italian people. And so Diego Acevedo, learning about this, made the perfectly reasonable deduction, gee, it would be nice if Americans who are laid off through no fault of their own, and currently, let's see, oh yes, there are 40 million of them as I speak. They would also then have freedom of choice if such a law were passed. Wow. What did Diego do? He wrote a letter to a woman in the Congress of the United States, Representative Donna E. Shalala, member of Congress, I believe, from the 27th District in Florida. And I remember her name because she was a cabinet secretary in Bill Clinton's White House. Okay, he wrote to Donna Shalala, mentioned the law, and said it would be good if she introduced it. And Diego Acevedo was kind enough to send me a copy of the reply he got from her July 16th, 2019. The letter back to him is somewhere between an impertinence and an impolite brush off. She either didn't understand what he was talking about or chose basically to ignore it. She gave herself several pats on the back in the manner of these kinds of letters and indicated clearly that she would do nothing at all about any of the proposal he made having to do with the Marcora Law. And so he asks me, do I think it is effective to write letters to your congressman or your congresswoman? The question, I believe, answers itself. It probably does no harm, but if you expect much from it, you are not in tune with the following reality. People sit in Congress like they do in state houses because commercial and wealthy groups put them there, provide them with the money, provide their parties with the money, provide them in office with lobbyists to write bills for them, provide them with media coverage, give them awards, give their relatives jobs. You get the picture. Compared to that, they have very little interest in, very little dependence upon, and very little response to the rest of us, the vast majority. Good work, Diego Acevedo, but I would focus my efforts elsewhere to build the movement of people who understand the kinds of things you're trying to do, and they will be a much better ally in moving us forward than anyone, with very few exceptions, sitting in the United States Congress. This is Richard Wolff with another Ask Prof. Wolff response for our Patreon community.